Howdy, Global Hack Week Open Source. We are back at it again. I hope you enjoyed our last session. We've got another one coming up at you right now. It's going to be amazing. Our good friends at GitHub are joining us to talk a little bit about their journey through tech and how they got started and all things Global Hack Week and open source and all of those great things. And yeah, I just wanted to let y'all know, if you're in the chat, let us know, what your familiarity is with GitHub. Make sure you drop some questions in the chat throughout the session. I think it's going to be a great one. I'm really looking forward to seeing how everything goes. And just to let y'all know, for the folks that are currently online with us right now, there will be a swag drop at the end of this workshop. So keep it locked in. Make sure that you are participating. And yeah, get excited, y'all. Let us know how you feel in the chat. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce PJ Metz.
Ta-da! I'm here and I'm live and I have way more going on my screen than I thought I would. Hi, I'm PJ Metz. I am a program manager of student communities at GitHub, working on the education team specifically. And I'm really excited to talk to anybody anywhere, especially about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, which is how I got into tech. I have what I consider a very untraditional path into tech. But one of the things I always try and tell people is that no one really has a traditional path into tech, because a lot of people who think they're going into tech for one thing end up in a completely different area of tech. People are like, I'm going to be a web developer. And then they're like, oh, never mind. Now I'm in security. And then later on, they're like, I'm on a completely different path now. So no one really has a traditional path. And I like telling my story about my untraditional path because it reinforces that for other people. It's really easy to feel like you're doing everything wrong. You're never going to make it. I'll be totally honest. This morning, I felt like I shouldn't be making it. I shouldn't be here. I had a lot of imposter syndrome this morning. And if I'm being completely honest, that all just disappeared the moment we went live, and I got really excited again about what I'm doing and who I get to work with. So it's real. You're gonna feel bad sometimes, but let's talk about this path. And I'd love to bring in my slides, because I've got a little slide deck, because of course I do. This is from the classroom to the command line, open source, aka they said it couldn't be done. For about 3 years, whenever I would get on stream, I would always say, they said it couldn't be done. Like my partner would be like, we're live. I actually almost did it to Rosendo. Rosendo was like, I'd like to bring in PJ. And I was like, hey, they said it couldn't be done, but I didn't. So I have, let's talk about who I am again. Like, why am I here? What am I doing? Like I said, program manager of student communities. Before that, I was at a company called Project Discovery, and they're a cybersecurity company that does vulnerability scanning, and I was their developer community manager there. I was at GitLab before that as a education evangelist. And before that, this is where the path gets weird. I was a high school English teacher, and I was huge into the 80s and 90s kind of culture. I love vaporwave. It's one of my favorite things. My whole vibe on this slide deck is definitely vaporwave, and I'm into every kind of music. I love music. Appreciate that. Yeah, I would love an English teacher like you. I tried to be the English teacher that I only had once when I was in high school, and it was great. I loved it. Yeah, vaporwave gang. It's real, and also it's dead, but it's alive. And vaporwave is dead. Vaporwave is dead. Long live vaporwave. I am technically a published poet. Sometimes I'm a musician. I play drums. And like, that's just a little about me, my background. But really, we're here to talk about open source. I'm going to get to how open source was a defining part of my journey into tech. But first, we have to talk about how I went from poetry to codatry. And that's not a real word, but that's fine. So I spent 11 years as a high school teacher before I got my first tech job. The way I discovered I wanted to be a teacher was I was in college. I went to the University of Florida in Gainesville, and I switched my major about two, 3 times by the time I was in my sophomore year. I started out in environmental science. They decided that I realized I wasn't good at science. I almost failed out of college based on my science courses. And I moved to undecided, switched my major. I'm undecided now. Then they were like, well, you got to pick something. And I picked, you know, anthropology, which wasn't really interesting to me, but they said I was accidentally on track for. So I picked that. All the while, I was taking these literature courses as electives. And I loved them. I loved talking about poetry and reading. And one time I was leaving a survey of American literature course, and I realized how much I loved the discussion I had just had in that class and how much I was dreading the next class. And I had this thought as I was on my way to that course, and I was like, man, I wish I could just get paid to talk about books. And I was walking, I literally stopped and I went, that's what a teacher does. And I skipped my next class and I went to the College of Education and I said, I want to be a high school teacher. And they told me what to do. What I did was I got my bachelor's in English. I switched to English and loved my degree from then on. And then I went and got a master's in secondary English education. Now you'll notice this selfie is taken with a flip phone. This is from 2009. And this is me at my first, what was called a practicum. It's kind of like an internship for teachers. And this was me going in to teach English 2 in I think that might have even been 2008. This is back when sweater vests were cool. I did an internship. I got some experience. I continued teaching literature. This is a completely staged photo. You can tell those pants are definitely from 2008 JCPenney. And I just kept working. Eventually, I end up in a town called Melbourne, Florida, which is on the Space Coast. And I became a teacher at a school there called Eau Gallie High School. And I taught 9th grade English Standard, 9th grade English Honors. I taught a couple of other classes based on mass media and analyzing television and analyzing movies and analyzing music. I keep teaching. I really just thought I was going to teach until the very end of my career. For a brief moment, for a year and a half, I went and taught tiny kids in South Korea, teaching English over there for a year and a half. So I take a break from teaching high schoolers about The Great Gatsby and, you know, all these great pieces of literature. And instead I went and taught these 4-year-olds the days of the week for a year and a half. And I ended up realizing, like, you know, it reinvigorated my excitement about teaching. And I was super happy to be educating both little kids and, you know, these big kids when I finally came back to the States. When I come back to the States, I ended up teaching at my alma mater, the high school that I went to. So I understood like the culture of that school. I understood the people, like former teachers were now colleagues. And I had people ask me all the time, like, oh, like, do you want to be a principal eventually? Because that's the path for a teacher. You either teach forever or you get into administration. And I just knew I didn't want to. I knew I wanted to work with students and learners. And that's what was really exciting to me. I spent a lot of time, and this is the final picture, is me in my last year as a high school teacher. This is at my house that I used to have in Orlando. So I realized that in teaching, what my job was taking something big and unapproachable and not understood by my audience and giving it to them in a way that made more sense. So for instance, like, how do you convince a 17-year-old who's thinking about lacrosse practice after school and that cryptic text that their boyfriend just sent to them, and, you know, I've got so much homework tonight and I didn't understand math today, and, you know, like all the things that are there, and then they come into my class and I'm like, let's talk about modernism and how World War II irrevocably changed human nature, and like these big, difficult concepts. They're like, how do I care about that? Like, that was my job. It was part of explaining something completely foreign to someone in a way that makes sense to them. And so that's a skill that I spent a lot of time developing as a teacher. And it was really important to me that, like, I learned how to do that. Yeah, teacher fit does go kind of hard. I gotta admit that blue and yellow, this might have been like you know, a purposeful little nod to April, what's it called? No, Leap Day from 30 Rock. Go ahead and Google that. Before I move on, the next part of this journey is me actually transitioning into tech, and this is a story I've told a lot of times in a lot of different ways. I want to check and make sure that I'm not missing any sort of questions here. Our sweater vest's not cool anymore. It's cool if you make it Mickey D Express. Those phones were super cool. That phone, specifically that phone, was the first phone I ever had that could also play MP3s, and I thought the future was here. It was absolutely amazing. Love the Argyle. Thank you. You are Korean. Hi, Young Hyun. 안녕하세요. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Do I miss teaching? Luckily, I still get to do kind of teaching. I miss talking about literature, but I still do literature events at work. I have done poetry events at GitLab when I was there. I just did a poetry event last Friday for GitHub, where we analyzed a Latina poet named Johnny Rose, and we looked at a poem she wrote called What's in a Name, and I had about 15 people come together in Zoom. And for Hispanic Heritage Month, we analyzed this Latina poet together. It was pretty dope. Yeah. Okay, so that's me teaching, like I said, 11 years. And then this next part of my story is how I get into tech. So everyone here remember the pandemic? This is me at Universal Studios. We were still wearing masks outside. We were still wearing cloth masks. The stay home trend on Instagram. This hits. Thank you for the pronunciation. I'm glad that worked. So the pandemic hits, and it changes the way I'm teaching. That first semester I was teaching during the pandemic, we went fully remote, but my high school that I taught at had this program we used called Schoology, and it's kind of like Facebook for classes. And so my class had a page, and I could post videos, and homework assignments were all turned in on there. So already a lot of what we did was on the internet. And so for me, it was actually really, it was a very difficult time for a lot of people, and a lot of teachers had a hard time. And I remember feeling bad because I was having an easier time because everything just kind of made sense to me, and it was all already online. So that spring semester of 2020, we get to May, and the year ends, and I get all my grades in and everything. And then I have the summer, and there's nothing going on. I had moved back to Orlando after Korea, so a lot of my friends that I had were still in Melbourne, and a lot of those friends actually moved way all over the world. I have friends that moved to Colorado, to the Bay Area. These people that we were very close in our early 20s moved everywhere. And so the pandemic gave us an excuse to kind of get together and hang out together on Zoom and have happy hours together. During this happy hour, this man here in a bear hat, he was working at Red Hat at the time. And I, as an English teacher, and all these people, by the way, they were all like engineers at like a communications company in Melbourne. They were the smartest people I knew. I felt so intimidated by them. This guy had transitioned to tech specifically. He was at Red Hat. And we were all hanging out, and he goes, "Oh, I just found out that like I'm making a lot less than someone who's at the same level as me at my company." And we were all like, "Oh my God, like how much are you getting underpaid by?" And he goes, "I'm getting underpaid by like $50,000 a year." And we were all like shocked and worried. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's more than I make in a year." Like he was being underpaid by more than my yearly salary. And I made a joke about it, about how I'm terribly underpaid. And all my friends agree teachers are underpaid, and teachers are super underpaid, especially in Florida. And one person in this chat, this guy goes, PJ, I do this job called developer relations. And developer relations is a lot like teaching. A lot of my job is teaching people. And I said, okay, but you know how to code. And I tried learning to code in the 6th grade with BASIC at a computer camp in 1996, and it didn't go well. I was always bad at math. I literally write poetry and teach Shakespeare and all that stuff. All that makes sense to me. There's no way I can learn to code. And he goes, I mean, like, what do you have going on this summer? And of course, I had nothing going on that summer. It was 2020. I was wiping down groceries with bleach wipes before I put them away. I was still putting Amazon boxes in the garage for 3 days because we still thought COVID was surface to surface transmission. And I just sat in my house, just sat right there, did nothing. So he goes, what if you learn to code? And I thought about it. And I said, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'll learn some coding this summer. I literally thought worst case scenario, maybe I make an app that makes giving bathroom passes to students a little bit easier so we can like keep track of who's in the bathroom for too long, you know? So I agree. He sends me some videos. He says, "All right, you're gonna go learn now." And as a teacher, I now had to switch gears entirely and start learning instead of teaching. So he sends me a video by Scott Hanselman. My friend is a C Sharp app developer, so I started with C Sharp, and I got on Codecademy, and I wrote my first Hello World in May of 2020. And I had no concept of what a hello world was. What up, Lucky? I'm glad Lucky's here. I had no concept of what that meant, but I did it. And like a few lessons in, it sort of clicked. I went, oh my gosh, all of coding is basically storing some kind of information somewhere and then retrieving that information later in some kind of specific way. So I'm on Codecademy. I'm working on C Sharp and just learning. You can see here I was learning about Razor Pages. That's when I was doing .NET, ASP.NET stuff. After that, I spent that fall learning ASP.NET Core, HTML, CSS. I did all this through Codecademy. And kind of like halfway through the modules, my friend, whose name is Brandon, he goes, okay, like I think you know enough to like build something now. And I was like, what do you mean build something? And he was like, yeah, you should build a website. So I started working on building a website. And then as we're building that website, he introduces me to someone called Chloe Condon. And with Chloe, I start hanging out with Chloe and building Twitter bots. And this is where I start to get into open source. Now, Brandon and Chloe, they became my mentors. I'm teaching. In the fall of 2020, I go back to teaching. I'm still teaching, right? And in my free time, I'm doing these sort of Codecademy lessons. I start streaming myself on Twitch, learning. I start streaming myself with Brandon, building the website. I start streaming myself on Twitch, building Twitter bots with Chloe. I go on a show that they have. Both of them were working at Microsoft at the time. And they had a show that they did where they talked to people in tech about their backgrounds because no one has a traditional path in tech. So their whole show was talking to people about how they got into tech and their background and stuff. And I showed up a few times saying, well, I'm trying to get into tech. I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I'm trying. And this learning is happening. And this leads to me kind of realizing as I look back on all this, there's a very specific process I went through. And in that process that I went through, this is how I learned, and open source was a huge part of that. So this process that I learned, I did 3 things. I did it very publicly, and that's the open source part. I did it inside of a community, and I did it repeatedly, just over and over and over. The most awesome thing about the learning that I did, and my favorite part about being online, were doing Twitter bots. So these Twitter bots, this is back when Twitter was still called Twitter, which is a funny sentence to say out loud. Basically, I was building a website with Brandon, and that was going well. And I meet Chloe, and she's like, we should build something together too. And we end up deciding on a Twitter bot. So we were doing it live on Twitch, just like I did a lot of my learning. And these Twitter bots are let's get to it, honestly, are all built on this guy. This is the Coding Train. The Coding Train is a guy online who has these amazing multi-video tutorials about very specific things. And his Twitter bot tutorial was fantastic. So Chloe and I, in building these Twitter bots, we literally took this guy's code. It was up, it was open source, it was free. We just copied it and pasted it. And we would literally go and just mess with it live online in these shows. And I would be coding, and Chloe would like not give answers. She would sometimes help out, but mostly it was me learning very live. And learning live, for those of you who have done it, you know it's a a humbling experience because you're making mistakes and people can see your mistakes as you're making them. Things like, oh, I think it needs a parentheses around the entire expression. I love that this person was helping with that, because literally that's the kind of mistake I would make. I would forget an end parentheses, or I wouldn't have the right parentheses, or I wouldn't have the right squiggly code block lines, right? So in doing this learning online, I'm constantly making mistakes. I'm constantly doing things wrong, but I'm also constantly being reinforced by people who are in the chat giving me advice. And not just giving me advice, but asking me questions to help me understand better. I remember one time I was really stuck on C# methods on Codecademy. I was so confused. I didn't know what was going on. And someone in the chat, instead of just saying, here's the answer, kept going, hey, can you explain the block from line like 20 to 32 for me? Can you explain what's happening in there? And go line by line. And I knew that what they were doing was just trying to help me kind of understand what was going on. But when I started explaining it line by line, I caught my mistake. And that's what was really cool about learning in public. And I consider that kind of a type of open source. Now, am I out here making apps that other people can use? No. Am I out here giving other people code for their open source projects to make it better? No. But I think that learning in public and being a part of the public work that's happening inside of tech and with coding is a type of open source work, especially because this code was open source code. I was allowed to use it because it was under the MIT license. So, let me go back to the actual bots that we made. So again, this story of open source and how it helped me was I went and I just kept making Twitter bots. So the first one I made is Shania Bot, and Shania Bot's whole deal was that she would tweet at the same time every day, "Let's go, girls." Now I know this is MLH, and I know at MLH it's a lot of young folks out there, certainly younger than me. Shania Twain was a 90s country and pop music superstar whose most famous song was a song called what is it called? Man, I Feel Like a Woman. And the opening of Man, I Feel Like a Woman is a guitar riff. And that guitar riff goes deep, and then Shania Twain jumps in and goes, "Let's go, girls." And it is iconic. It's iconic. Absolutely amazing. So Chloe and I had the idea because we found a tweet from someone online that said, if I were Shania Twain, I would tweet every day, "Let's go, girls," at 6 in the morning. And so we made a bot that did that. So Shania would tweet "Let's go, girls" every day at the same time. Shania Twain also has a song called "That Don't Impress Me Much." And we put another function in the Shania bot that if you would tweet at Shania bot and tag her and say the word "impress," she would respond with "That don't impress me much." So we made Shania Bot. We did a bunch of streams about it where we were working on it. Some of those streams are actually still up on YouTube because we recorded them and put them up on the YouTube. And then we just kept making different Twitter bots that do different things. We made Mechanical Carey, which is a Mariah Carey Twitter bot. We made Bodiana Grande, which is an Ariana Grande Twitter bot. We made Just Bot Paid, which is a NSYNC Twitter bot based on a song they covered called Just Got Paid. I made a Bone Thugs bot. I made a bot that tweeted at Mountain Dew every day because I loved Mountain Dew Kickstarts. And I made a bot called Taking Bot Sunday. Each of these basically did the same thing. It was all the same, like 100-ish lines of code. It was either do something at the same time every day, or it was reply to someone when they tweet at the account. I actually have these things in two places. Like I said, my first job was at GitLab. So I had a repo called Divas Live that's public, and it has all my code in it. But because I work at GitHub now, I made sure that it's also at GitHub. And these are all the things that I wrote. And I'm going to show you, we're going to zoom in a little bit here. Oh, no, that didn't work. Why did that happen? I love it when I lose things. I love it. Where's Chrome? Oh, man, I totally lost that whole window, didn't I? Okay, let me see. There it is. Got it. Okay. So let's look at because Shania is the first one we did. Let's look at Shania, and we did all this in Node, and just wrote it out. Again, we stole all of this from the coding train, and let me yeah, perfect. We're sharing my screen, right? So we would just have to set up like some rules using Node Schedule, which again, that's open source. We would npm that in. We would use Node Schedule. It was just out there to make it easier to create rules around times that something had. I was really bad at what's that word for at cron jobs, and this made cron jobs a lot easier for me. All this code stays the same. It's like setting things up. We're using a wrapper at the time called twit. And it was wonderful. It was super easy. It made my life a lot easier than making actual API calls. We set up a stream that's watching things. And then eventually we just have a function that creates a tweet event. We're looking using regex to find the word impress somewhere. If it matches, then we will tweet that don't impress me much. And we had some math here to pick a random number between 1 and 3. That would pick, where is that? That don't impress me much. Where is that at? That don't impress. Where is that defined? Where are you? Where are you? There we go. It would pick one of these 3 random sets of emojis, because in the song That Don't Impress Me Much, Shania Twain is not impressed with 3 very specific things. She says, "Oh, you're really smart. Okay, so you're a rocket scientist. That don't impress me much. Okay, so you drive a car. That don't impress me much. Okay, so you're a movie star. That don't impress me much." And so we made sure that the beginning of That Don't Impress Me Much included one of these sets of emojis chosen at random to put at the beginning of the tweet. So this all happens, it runs, it's great, I love it. And like I said, all of this stays the same for basically all of the different Twitter bots. Like once I made one, I was able to make a bunch of other ones. We have, let's do Taking Bot Sunday. Taking Bot Sunday is a Taking Back Sunday, which is an emo band from the 90s and 2000s, for those of you who don't know. And I really like their songs and their music. So what I did was every day they have a lyric that says September never stays this cold where I come from and you know. And so the first day of every month it would say the name of that month, and it never stays this cold for where I come from and you know. And in fact, Taking Bot Sunday, you can see the final tweet that happened was in March 2023. March never stays this cold. February, it just was kicking these off once in a sorry, it was kicking these off beginning of every month, December 1st, February 1st, etc., etc. It also had a reply function, I think, for a while. Yeah. So if you tagged Taking Bot Sunday and said the word emo, it would give you a selection of lyrics and the music video that song is from. So it'd be like, here's the music video and a lyric from it. And that was the whole thing that Taking Bot Sunday did. Like that was its whole deal. And again, all of that, you like all the code for that is right here. This is, I created a array called, let's go back to Head Club. And this was just a selection of lyrics in an array. And each array, like the 0th element of the array, related to the 0th element of the array, you know how I do, which these are all Taking Back Sunday lyrics. And it would connect these two. So it would pick a random number and pull that element from both of these arrays and then stick it in the tweet itself. Status update. Where's the tweet? Where does it tweet? Yeah. So it would reply to the person at the name. It would pick I from You Know How I Do in Head Club, which I just showed you are the lyrics and the YouTube video. So I just kept making all of these and just kept making new Twitter bots for new ideas I had. Badiana Grande would say thank you next when you tweeted eyes and painting nails at Badiana Grande. This is also Shania bot. Let me see if I can get this whole can I see the whole thing? Man, Twitter is a mess right now. I'll just show you the Shania bot replies. So there's "Let's go girls" every day, literally every day. The replies saying that don't impress me much. Yeah, there we go. "Let's go girls" on March 1st. This was after they announced that the API was going to get messed up. We had a few days left. Dorian Gray said, "That's impressive." And she replied, "That don't impress me much." I'm going to like that. That's a good one. But this just happened all the time. This was just automated. It was fun. It was an experiment in writing code and letting people know that it exists very publicly. And in fact, to keep it public and to get it such that more people could do it, I wrote a whole dev.to article where I explained how my code worked. And it's dead now. Like, again, like as of, Twitter's API was no longer free. You can probably there's still, I think they did change the rules eventually. I just didn't want to deal with it. There were so many changes happening so quickly, and I just didn't have the energy to keep up with it. But I did write how to do it, and I gave a whole article teaching people how to make Twitter bots, complete with GIFs from the 80s, because like I said, I love the 80s. Free tier is right only. Thanks, MLH. Yeah. So, giving them code. I started a Super Nintendo soundtrack bot as well. I talked about how you can host it as well. Alternatives to just the traditional cloud, like ways that you can host your place. I talked about render. I talked about Heroku, and I talked about Linode. So if you wanted to host your bot somewhere that wasn't AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, I wrote an article about that. And all of this really is to say that, like, open source is not just libraries and pushing code that does something super amazing. All of this code is, for someone who knows what they're doing, very simple. And I guarantee some of y'all in this chat are like, "Oh, Twitter bots," and like you looked at the code and you were like, "That's it," and you probably saw like a mistake or two in there. Open source is not just about being on the edge and doing something new and amazing. Open source's whole ethos for me is being in public and sharing and helping other people to achieve something that you achieved. The whole reason that someone makes an open source tool and puts it on the internet is so that other people can use it. And so, yeah, this wasn't complicated. Yeah, the code was totally stolen from other people. But in the end, I put out an article that said, look, this is how you do it. And I shared my process with people because, like, using GitHub Desktop was something I didn't know how to do, right? NPM was something I learned to do because of making these Twitter bots. Using NPM at all came because of this. The idea of protecting secrets in environmental variables is something I learned because of this. All of this was me learning and then sharing that learning with other people. I was always told, and I forget who told it to me, but a very common thing is once you learn something, write the post that you wish you had read in order to learn that thing. Because I bet another thing is true for everyone in this chat. If you've started learning and started working and you've gone to try and research something, it takes a long time to find the article or the blog or the docs that actually helps you. And so once you are helped and once you've figured something out, what you have as a learner is a unique path in your brain that you have physically created in order to understand this new concept, right? You didn't understand and now you do. You've created a path of learning for yourself that works best for you. There is somebody else out in the world that needs your article, that needs your explanation, that needs to see your path to understanding because it's going to work for them too. This is why, as a teacher, I always said things like, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Please ask questions because I know someone else in class has the same question and they're worried about asking it. I've never had someone ask a question in my classroom or as a developer educator or all that stuff. I've never had someone ask a question that wasn't immediately applicable to someone else in the room. You are valuable, and your learning is valuable to others, especially if you're public with it. So I really recommend people are public about learning. Like I said, the way I learned was publicly. I did this on Twitch live in front of people. I wrote articles. I told people about moving out of education and into tech, right? I learned in a community on Twitter. I met a bunch of other DevRels. I started putting out CFPs. I was like, well, I can't talk about tech. I really don't know Golang well, but I know how education works. I know how teaching works. And so if I've got something I can teach to people, I can bring that energy. I started doing presentations and podcasts, and I just kept going back to the learning over and over and over and over. In the end, the company that did decide to hire me and did say, okay, you're worth it. Yep, and that's true. Environment variables aren't that secure, but I tell you what, it's better than just putting it in plain text like I was doing first. So there's a trade-off, right? I can't tell you how many times I had to go and rotate my API keys because I just had it in plain text and I would show it on stream. So in the end, the company that actually took a chance on me was GitLab. And before that, these are all the companies that said no to me. And it's kind of funny now because here, GitHub did say yes to me. In December, they said yes and they hired me of this past year. So like, eventually they did like me and they did want me because I was doing all this work and all this stuff publicly, right? Write the docs you wish you've read. Absolutely. I have told this story in a ton of different ways. At Project Discovery, I talked about going from being a teacher to trying to learn how to hack. I have done podcasts. I have done tons of stories or tons of things that tell my story very specifically, because I think that there's a lot of people who are nervous about, changing their career, are nervous about learning to code. And it's anyone from literally current computer science students who are in a program designed to teach them to people who are in their 50s who are like, I don't know, I guess I can try and learn this. You can. It's hard. There are days you're going to wish you weren't doing it, and there are days you're going to want to give up. But as long as you don't give up, you're still working towards it. You're still moving towards that goal, I would love to answer some questions. What if we're shy? Hold on. Be scared and do it anyway. Be scared and do it anyway. If you're shy, that's okay. There's a way that you can do things that works best for you. You just have to find it. It's hard. Again, none of this is like, I feel like I'm saying like, oh, you just do it. No, it's nerve-wracking. It's hard. Like to stand up in front of people and talk, to go back to a million years ago in this slide deck, this guy, when I was in college and having to stand in front of a bunch of teenagers and convince them that poetry is cool, that guy was nervous. Every day getting in front of them, I was scared they were going to laugh at me. I was scared they were going to make fun of me. And then they did laugh at me. And then they did make fun of me. But in the end, I realized that it wasn't that they didn't want me to do it. Something I heard very recently about public speaking in general. The audience that's watching someone talk or give a speech or anything, the audience overwhelmingly wants that person to succeed. It is very rare a person in the audience is watching someone on stage and is going, well, I hope they fail. Well, I hope they make a bunch of mistakes. Well, I hope they're bad at this. They want you to succeed because if you succeed, they're entertained or they're informed or they learn. So when you succeed, they succeed. No one's rooting for you to fail. And if they are rooting for you to fail, they're not worth your time because there's so many people rooting for you to succeed. Tons of them. Okay, running back through to touch this. Thank you so much. I know we're not at the end, but I want to open it up for some time for questions, for people to ask anything. I'm going to go ahead and run back through the chat just to see if I missed anything. I did see someone ask about kind of being, they're like, am I allowed to start? C as the first language is like banging your head on a wall. Someone told me C# was starting on hard mode one time, and I didn't believe them. Yeah, 27 years is not too old. You know, when I started, I was 35 when I wrote my first Hello World. Yep. Frufflington, you're starting at 32. Heck yeah. People saying they like the journey. Rosendo, yeah, 27. Not close. It's never too late to make a change. Yeah. So helpful. The Twitter bot tutorial on YouTube. I don't know if anyone found that. Divishil, that'd be like if you just YouTube coding train Twitter bots, the whole playlist is on there. Shania is iconic. You're absolutely correct. MLH, thank you. 26 recently. I'm scrolling. Someone Bone Thugs. I hope Yuri Tato. I hope you know Bone Thugs because they're amazing. The Bone Thugs actually. Oh, I can show off Bone Thugs. Hold on. Let's do Bone Thug. Is it Bot Thugs? Oh, let's just look at the code inside here. So the Bone Thug code. Bone Thugs and Harmony is a 90s rap and R&B group, and they have a song called The First of the Month. And on the first of the month, I would just tweet the music video for It's the First of the Month. That's it. That was the whole thing. It's 31 lines of code for the Bone Thugs Harmony Twitter bot. That was one I just did for funsies. Everyone talking to each other. Love it. Yep. Thank you, Major League Hacking, for letting them know what the I was. API is free. Yeah, it's complicated. MLH, y'all were running a Twitter bot workshop at the same time? Aha, frenzies. Write the docs. Presentation. I'm glad y'all are inspired. Oh, Aditya. Yeah, I'm always worried about my code isn't production ready. No one's code is production ready, man. Like, that's the reason we work in teams, and that's the reason we work in groups. That's the reason we have test environments. But like, you're always gonna feel nervous when you're doing something. But I remind you, be afraid and do it anyway. Now, don't push to prod. It's Friday. Don't push to prod today. You wait till Monday. What is Project Discovery? Okay. Project Discovery is it's vulnerability scanning. They're really cool, doing a lot of cool stuff. But if you go, let's go to their github.com tab Project Discovery. Their big thing is a tool called Nuclei. And Nuclei, let's go here first and then click into this and maybe zoom out a little bit because boy, am I tight in that. Their big thing is Nuclei, and Nuclei is a vulnerability scanner, and you can download it and use it inside of your terminal, where essentially you point it at an IP and it runs a bunch of what are called Nuclei templates against that IP to test it for vulnerabilities. So this uses what are called CVEs, which are published vulnerabilities that are known in a bunch of web stacks. And it essentially is a way to check and make sure that the IP address that is being targeted is not vulnerable to any known CVEs. And it's all done through YAML templates. I was there as a community manager, so I only barely started really understanding security, and I would say I still don't understand security, but the idea of vulnerability scanning is a very important part of security. This is useful for people who are doing like white hat hacking, who are doing even like blue team and red team hacking. This is useful because you can test these vulnerabilities. You can find out if your assets are vulnerable before hackers find out if they're vulnerable if you're using this tool. There's a bunch of hacker tools out there. When I switched into this company, I started going and learning on Codecademy. They have a bunch of security courses. I did things like Hack the Box and Pwnbox and all these other places that teach hackers so that I could try and learn and understand. It is hard, but it is really cool. And Nuclei is a really great tool. I highly recommend it for anyone who's thinking about security. check out Project Discovery, and they have a whole host of tools that do a bunch of different things. Cool place. Let's see. Rejected for ambassador. I was kind of sad. Try again. Areas to prove focus upon. Hi, crazy blankly. Well, we don't give a lot of feedback on those applications, but I will say that like we don't take every qualified applicant because we don't have the room. We can only take so many people. So every year we have to say no to qualified candidates. And my best advice is keep applying. Talk to other campus experts publicly online. Get involved in the way you're running events. Like I don't have specifics, but like it's a hard part of this job is having to say no to qualified people every time. It's like college. Like certain colleges, they can't take everyone because a lot of people are qualified, but they just don't have room. But please keep applying again. Please keep applying again. There are people who applied several times, and it took a few times for them to get in. But we appreciate that you are applying, and we appreciate more than that. We appreciate the work you're doing in the community already without our support, and hopefully we can work together one day. Did you ever think if you're too late to start coding because others are probably ahead of you? Yes, I did. I felt that all the time. I still think that. I think that about people on my team right now. I'm like, how can I compare to this person? They're so amazing. They've done so much great work. And I think it every day. Be scared and do it anyway. I don't care that they're ahead of me. I'm where I am. And the people on my team and the people at my job and the people around me, they're all aware of what level I'm at. They knew when they hired me how good or not good I was at the technical aspect of this job. They hired me for a reason, and they brought me on the team for a reason. Whenever I get worried that, other people are so far ahead of me, I think about all the people that also aren't ahead of me. The people who started after me, the people who aren't where I'm at. I think that the way I talk myself out of those feelings a lot is saying, yeah, of course they're ahead of me. They've had more time. But I'm where I am right now. And what I have is valuable to somebody. And I found a few companies, luckily, that saw value in me almost despite my technical, like lower level of ability. How do you know if you're ready to apply to jobs? Feel like I have to know more and more and more. Yeah, you absolutely just apply. Like make them tell you no. The answer to will you give me a job will always be no if you don't apply. So you have to at least apply. I bring you back to this screen, like the company that hired me first. I was putting out tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of applications all the time. All of these companies were like, no thanks, not right now, no thanks. Stripe's on here twice because I applied to 2 Stripe jobs, right? They're gonna say no, but someone's gonna say yes. And that person and that company and that job will say yes. And if it fits for you as well, then go for it. Don't talk yourself out of applying to a job. Let them tell you no. Yes, bug bounty hunting. Yes, that's a really good tool that Nuclei is used for. Companies will say, hey, if you find a bug or if you find a vulnerability in our system, here's the reporting you can do. I actually wrote a, oh man, I wonder if I can even Google this. Project Discovery, PJ Metz, bug bounty etiquette. Yep, we had a guide to bug bounty hunting. I'm going to put this in the private chat for Rosendo, so you can please send this to them. But I wrote a whole article about how to do bug bounty hunting correctly and with proper etiquette, because a lot of people will be like, I found a bug, and it's like not a real bug, and they're like, you said you would give me money or swag or whatever. So like it's a 2-part series on polite hacking and how to be a polite hacker. And that's back when I was at Project Discovery that one existed. So yeah, bug bounty hunting is a super, super cool thing. How to keep in touch with me after the stream. I'm pretty much Metzin around everywhere. And that's METZIN AROUND. It's Metzin around on Twitter. I'm pretty sure I'm on Blue Sky, I think still. But also, if you want to message me, my GitHub handles also Metzin around. You can find me on there. But yeah, I'm pretty sure my Twitter DMs are open-ish. But yeah, you could keep in touch with me after the stream on there. Would a referral help for that, Creamy Gamer? The we it depends. Like, we're looking for people who are active in their community because they want to be active in their community. So if you are going out to try and find a campus expert to get a referral from them, they will sense that that's what you're trying to talk to them for, and it'll feel disingenuous. Best bet is to build, and this is true for just networking in general, and this is random advice now. Networking in general is about forming authentic relationships with people. If you're talking to someone and it's clear that you're just trying to get to know them because you think they can help you get a job or they can help you succeed, that comes through very easily in the conversation and the person's less inclined. But if you're genuinely interested in just meeting people, finding out what they're doing, chatting with them about their work, those more natural and more authentic relationships that are about the relationship and not the quid pro quo of it, that leads to more opportunities. So we do have a referral program, but it's I wouldn't go looking for it, if that makes sense. Always going to be a big fish, absolutely. Mutation. I get started on learning something like taking some courses, but find myself giving up when it gets a bit tough or when I see other technology I think is better than the current one. Yeah, that's totally normal. The desire to give up is strong because it's uncomfortable. The first tech talk I ever did, oh no, wrong screen. Hold on. The first tech talk I ever did was called "Confusion is the Sweat of Learning," and it's online here. And this was for a Microsoft event online in October of 2020. October of 2020. Let's see, where do I need to be right now? I need to be here. I'm going to put this in the private chat, Rosendo. But this talk is all about how you're going to be confused. Like, you are going to be confused and it's going to happen. And when you accept that and say, yes, I'm going to be confused, when it shows up, you're not surprised and you're less likely to quit. You're like, I knew this would come. And the rest of the talk has a bunch of advice on how to move through that and stuff like that. On Discord, yeah, okay. Abhinav, you're talking to Crazy Blankly. Thank you very much. Hacktoberfest is a great time to contribute to open source projects. We just did a stream on Campus Experts on GitHub Education Twitch, which is twitch.tv/GitHub Education. We just did a stream about 4 students talking about Hacktoberfest and how they got involved in their history and advice for people. So that's right now. It's a great way to get started. HackerOne, Hack the Box Academy. Yep. Just saw the Twitter. Okay, scrolling down. They watched the stream. Thanks. Thank you, Yun Lee, watching our live streams. Appreciate that. More questions. Anything else? I'm happy to answer questions. Also, we got to do a giveaway too, Rosendo.
Yeah, we've got to do a giveaway. If there are no more questions, we can kind of jump into that if you'd like.
Sure, I'm in.
All right.
I want to say thank you. Honestly, like, Rosendo, thank you for being so amazing and setting this up. And like, it was so easy to do this because of like your work and how you got me in here and like the prep that you helped. My Discord username is actually just PJ Metz. It's the one place that isn't Metzing around. They just assign. Remember when Discord was like, we're assigning people names, and everyone was like, what? So PJ Metz is me on Discord. We'll go ahead. Let's do the giveaway, and then if more questions come in, we can do questions after the giveaway, right?
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Okay.
Well, how do you want to do it, PJ?
I think. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm gonna do the number thing. I'm gonna pick a number between 1 and 1,000, and I want everyone to pick a number between 1 and 1,000 in the chat, and the one that gets closest will win a. What, Rosendo? What's the prize? What are they getting?
So it's actually a surprise swag drop. It's going to be something that we put together from our warehouse. A ton of like really good like MLH swag we mentioned in opening ceremony. Definitely worth trying out for.
Okay.
So
right. Write this number down.
We're gonna.
I'm not cheating. And the winner apparently is getting surprise swag. That's pretty good. I hope it's a steel briefcase.
filled with money. At 156, we'll stop. If yeah, y'all could just limit it to one
number. Oh man, these are a lot of numbers.
cap it off at 1,000, folks.
Yeah, some people are like, it's 1,000. 3,200. That's a bit overflow, my friend. Okay, I'm scrolling,
right.
I'm scrolling. I'm seeing close. I'm seeing close. Not quite, not quite. I saw.
Okay.
PJ divided by 2. Oh, that's really close. I'm going to remember that one. Hold on. I'm scrolling. We're so close.
So I just commented in chat end here. So if you're putting in numbers after that, your entry won't count, unfortunately. But I think everyone had enough time.
80s is a good answer, but it's not the right one, unfortunately. A lot of people guessing over 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh man.
All right.
People really picking like either end of the spectrum.
So it's the closest one.
Yeah. This is going way harder than I thought it would.
Yeah. What's the number? I can help out. I can stop.
My number is 486.
486.
I see 445, 456 from Chari MD. Is anyone closer than 456? Oh my God, so many.
I don't think so. I think that's it. 456 might be the one.
Hey, fantastic.
So let's find it again.
The first 456 I saw, because I saw other ones, was, I should just control F. Oh, it doesn't work in the chat because it's dynamic.
All right, 455.
It was near the 455, I'm pretty sure.
Oh man. 450. This is amazing.
How can I do? Man, your stats for like people in the chat are going to be out of control. There it is. Yeah, it was Chari MD. That's 456. Nailed it. All right. Like I said, we're keeping me honest. I definitely wrote a number down.
So, Chari MD, if you want to take a screenshot of this and open up a ticket with us on Discord, we will get you your swag drop. Amazing.
What a
All right.
day.
It has been one. PJ, I just want to say, really, thank you for dropping on by. Really appreciate it. I think a lot of your story really resonates with me as well. I think I mentioned it in chat. I'm also a career changer from I learned how to basically code in 2020 at a boot camp as well. I was the oldest person in my boot camp, older than the instructors even. So, you know how it goes. For all the
hard feeling.
For all the folks out there that are wondering if it's too late, it's never too late. I landed at a great place. MLH is a great place. I think like GitHub, PJ feels similarly about. So yeah, it's great. And I just want to thank you once again for jumping on and inspiring the folks on the chat and in the live stream to contribute to open source and to keep learning. Do you want to? I feel like there's one more question here.
Oh, I do see. Did your literature background help you in learning programming language? So at first I thought it was a hindrance, but then I started reading. There's a lot of research that actually a brain that better understands linguistics is better for languages. The reason you need math and coding is when you're thinking about algorithms and like the more complicated stuff like that requires a big math knowledge. But the languages itself, what to use and when, that's actually tapping into the linguistic side of your brain. So a literature background did help me a little bit. And it's funny because in literature, there's this thing called diction, and it's about word choice. Why did the author choose this word? Well, why did you choose this function, this native function over this native function, even though they do basically the same thing? Knowing that difference is a benefit in coding as well.
Absolutely. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you once again for joining. I really appreciate it. Keep it locked because we have building a customizable rich text editor for a content management system with Tiny MCE coming up right after this. And once again, PJ, thank you so much. Really appreciate having you here and hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.